Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. So we're going to continue the corner thing in just a moment. I want to play this little clip of Aaron Rodgers on the Pat McAfee Show because I find it kind of funny and interesting and weird. I will say, Rodgers is... First of all, he's like almost every other human being that does this exact same act, but he is the king of going somewhere publicly and saying, I don't care, while being very obvious that he cares a lot, and that's why he's going on this 5-minute rant about how angry he is about the way people act. Understandable that he's upset, but stop saying you don't care, because it obviously upsets you. It's funny because it doesn't even play into... I'm not even going to play the beginning where Pat McAfee is talking because... And this is, again, how you can tell Aaron Rodgers is upset about a certain issue that he wants to get off his chest. Because Pat McAfee starts off by saying, hey, man, if you're having like a wedding ceremony or any kind of party, we'd love an invite. We'll come hang out. We'll bring you a gift, whatever. And Rodgers just starts going off on how, first thing he says is, how sick is the society we live in today? And starts talking about paparazzi and stuff. And it's like, what? So can we come? Or he just had this locked and loaded. Something obviously happened to him recently. And he's pissed and wants to get it off his chest. Again, understandably so. But play this. I very much agree and very much disagree with what he's saying. But it's all entertaining nonetheless.
So if there's
it's a sick society, isn't it? It's a sick society. I lived in the public eye for 20 years. I had public relationship. How did that work out? I had people leaking my home information and making up stories that we bought a house together. I had people calling the paparazzi.
So I'm just trying to get caught up here because he said I was in the public eye for 20 years, and how did that go? And I thought he was going to talk about how over those 20 years, terrible things have happened. Obviously, the paparazzi, the media, they're scum, terrible people. But then it sounds like he's talking about a very specific recent event. So I was a little thrown off by that.
I had people, posting personal life on the internet, and now didn't want any of that, didn't like any of that, and now I'm with somebody who's private, who doesn't want to be in the public eye, didn't sign up to be, a celebrity, doesn't want to be a part of it. And because I do things in private, because I want my personal life to be private, now I'm somehow, I'm weird and out.
That is something that's always, and again, it's just anti-Rodgers sentiment in general. But it's like, when he's in the public eye, he's attention-seeking, he's all these horrible things. And then when he's quiet, it's, he's doing that on purpose. He's being weird. He's doing, why wouldn't you tell people? Should he be quiet and private, or should he be public and tell you everything and then be attention-seeking and causing drama? You can't have it both ways, but people will come at him no matter what he does.
The paparazzi is stalking me on the beach, trying to get a picture of her, stalking me at the work.
By the way, how has nobody gotten a picture of her? He's saying that the paparazzi are out there taking pictures, and he'll say it later, like when she decides to, that it's okay to come out and be public or whatever, then that'll be a thing. It's like, bro, I don't think you get to decide that. I'm shocked that hasn't happened already.
Work out. What is the entitlement to information that we're living in society these days, where that's like a norm? It's a norm to be able to have athletes' addresses. They posted something that about a house I bought in Pittsburgh, and here's the inside of it, and here's where it is. What happened to common decency about security and a personal life that we now have to dive into your details of where you live and what you're doing and who you're with and who your wife is, and if you even have a wife, and if you're doing some sort of attention-grabbing thing? Because my wife is a private person, doesn't have social media, hasn't been a public person, doesn't want to be a public person, but now that's a weird thing. And where are we at in society where that's like...
Two things. Number one, Obviously, that's messed up. Number 2, where are we at with society? Bro, this has been the case forever. The paparazzi goes way back before me or Rodgers were even born. And if you want somebody to blame, it's very simple. Ladies, cover your ears for a minute. Women. The paparazzi are not out there going so they can... It's not Pat McAfee's paparazzi. It's in the stupid gossip magazines. That's who's reading this crap. I don't care what your house looks like or who you're married to. I don't care. There are a couple weird guys out there that care, but they're weird. I'm just saying. Go find out where the paparazzi are putting those pictures. It's not in anything I'm reading. Not going to be on anything that I'm going to find. There might be some sports websites that will find the gossip websites and be like, oh, look, somebody found Rodgers' new home. I mean, you can look it up. Who buys paparazzi photos? OK Magazine, People Magazine, In Touch, Star, and Life and Style, Hello and Closer, apparently a UK thing, TMZ, of course, E! Online, PerezHilton.com, People Magazine, 70% female readership, OK Magazine, 80% female readership, US Weekly, 70 to 80% female readership. So, Rodgers, it's not my fault, bro. Aside from the weird 30% of dudes reading In Touch, Star, and Life and Style, or 20%, just blame women for all your problems, all right? Leave me alone. I didn't do it. And as far as, what's the, what type of world are we living in today? The term paparazzi and the practice of candid celebrity photography originated in the late 1950s in Italy, with the first notable paparazzi emerging around 1958. The word paparazzi, plural of paparazzo, was popularized by Frederick Fellini, 1960 film La Dolce Vita. In the film, a character named Paparazzo is a photographer who relentlessly pursues celebrities for candid shots. Tazio Secchiarelli is widely regarded as the first true paparazzo. Starting in 1958, he worked in Rome, captured candid and often scandalous photos of celebrities, along with Via Veneto. 1950 saw a boom in celebrity culture, fueled by Italy's film industry and the influx of international stars like a bunch of people I don't know. Tabloid magazines such as Italy's Tempo, Illustrato, and Il Giorno created a demand for candid celebrity images. So where are we at today? Same place we've been for 60 years. Some of the most famous paparazzi moments: Princess Diana's crash in 1997, Britney Spears' head shaving back in 2007, Jackie Kennedy, photographed in a compromising way, 1972, Michael Jackson dangling a baby over the balcony back in 2002, right? So I understand the frustration. I'm sure it sucks a lot, but this is definitely not new, and it's not our fault. It's not Pat McAfee's fault, and it's nobody watching Pat McAfee that's to blame for this, okay? We might make fun of you a little bit, but it's all in good fun. We're not sending the paparazzi after you, though, bro. I don't care where you live. Don't really care who you married. It's interesting a little bit, but not that interesting. There's a lot of people mad at me right now. Hey, you know what? I like stats. I'm sorry you don't.
Like the norm now, that just because
No, it's not the norm now. It's been the norm forever.
I'm not selling wedding photos to the magazines or leaking personal
magazines, I'm telling you.
information or making a loving post on Instagram. And look, you want to do that? That's fine. That's your own prerogative. I don't care. That's just not what I want to do. I don't want to be a part of anything. I told you, when this is all done, I'm out. You won't.
Now, I didn't know that. That was actually one of the more interesting things that I actually wanted to talk about. It's just the rest of this I found also entertaining when I listened to it. He's claiming that this is probably his last year, and when he's done with it, he's out. Because that was my question. I mean, as early as what, yesterday, 2 days ago? Is he going to continue doing this stuff, or is he going to disappear into the shadows? I don't know. Darkness. He made a darkness joke. Because it's interesting that Rodgers has those two very distinct personalities. He's always been a very private, very sheltered kind of person. He's also been a very public and outspoken person. You know, on one hand, he likes to go on the darkness retreat site type stuff. He likes to go up into the mountains and do things out there and do all this other stuff. On the other hand, he participates in, documentaries. I've seen him doing ayahuasca because obviously somebody recorded it that he was privy to. Apparently there was a documentary of his darkness retreat. I don't know if that ever came out, but he said it was going to. He was offered to run on the ticket with RFK when he was running for president, which I think he was considering, but decided football instead. So there's like the public side of things, and then the very private side. And I wasn't sure which way he was going to go. I still don't know. I don't know if he's going to be able to just disappear. But it is interesting to hear that that's what he plans, and good for him. That's what I would plan. I don't want to freaking... You'd never see me because I wouldn't leave the house. I'd have all my money. I'd be sitting at home. All my stuff would be coming from Amazon. That's what I'd do with my money. I would buy things that are expensive on Amazon, and it would fill my house. Paparazzi would catch me doing nothing, except maybe bringing my garbage cans to the curb. That's about it. Just give them a little wave. Sup, boys? Go back inside. Get on my $7,000 PC and play some games. With my 70-inch TV and go grill a steak in my backyard. Little steak break, That's why I can't have money. I would waste it. There's nothing I would do that's interesting. It would just sit somewhere because I wouldn't even hardly spend any of it. Take some vacations, whatever. I guess they could catch me on vacation because I wouldn't go somewhere exclusive. I would go to freaking SeaWorld, Yeah, you could go somewhere in Peru. They wouldn't know. Like, I ain't going to freaking Peru, bro. I'm going to Orlando. And it's too hot to be wearing disguises. I ain't wearing a balaclava or whatever. It would be annoying. I get it, but, that's freaking that's the trade-off, I guess. You get to be a billionaire and, all the good things that come with that. The problem is you're going to have scumbags taking your picture and trying to leak your information. And I would say that when possible, you should be pursuing them legally. I'm sure there's not much you can do because these people know what's legal and what's not, but you should do it anyways. And you should push for that to make sure that these people are sued and, because they should be, because that's ridiculous.
See me. And
I mean, they have doxing laws, don't they? This is considered doxing, especially when you're a public figure. You could certainly call it a security threat. Just a thought.
I know that I've chosen to be in the public eye for one more season, but my private life is staying private. And any other ridiculous story that's out there about my family that I don't talk to, they wouldn't know any information.
It's another story I couldn't care less about.
About me. Like, leave them alone. And you want to keep stalking me on the beach and getting photos of me and Apollo? Go for it.
What's Apollo? I don't know what that is.
Give a shit. But stop making shit up. And my private life is my private life, and it's going to stay that way. And I'm with somebody who wants to be private. And if and when she wants to be out and there's a picture, she'll choose that. And she deserves the right to that. But
she does deserve a right, but I would be shocked if she's going to be the one to choose that. Someone's going to snap a picture, and they're going to find out who she is, and all her details are going to come out. There's going to be a huge magazine spread, some magazine that, I'm just saying, with all of her background, where there's going to be a picture of her high school photograph. All that stuff's going to be way before she wants to. It sucks. It's unfortunate, but that's the decision that that people will make for you.
Entitlement to information about my private life is so fucking ridiculous and embarrassing. Like, hey, do what you gotta do, but just, try and leave me out of a conversation, sports world, for a month. Try and just leave me out. My personal life.
Okay, this is the other part that's kind of weird. Personal life, yes. Leave me out of a conversation, sports world. First of all, that's a different world. Sometimes they intertwine. Like, again, if somebody goes out and finds it, then the sports world will find out that it exists, and they'll be like, oh, guess what? They found out who she is. There you go. But the sports world should not leave Aaron Rodgers out of a conversation as long as he is a quarterback of a football team. And for my part, as I said, I have no desire to keep Rodgers out of conversations. I'd like to keep the conversation football related if possible. But I like the Rodgers drama. I enjoy it. And it is funny and ironic that he goes on Pat McAfee and then says, don't talk about me for a week. It's like, well, I wouldn't have talked about you this week if you didn't go on Pat McAfee. But you went on Pat McAfee, and now there's new Rodgers news, and so now I'm going to talk about you. So it's a weird challenge that I will politely decline. I dare you not to talk about me. Oh, well, no. Sorry. But I'll tell you what, when you retire and you go off into the sunset and you don't go on Pat McAfee anymore and you don't, then outside of like, obviously, I mean, you left a massive imprint on the Green Bay Packers. There's going to be some conversation about, comparisons and whatnot. Like, here's what Jordan did, here's what Rodgers did, whatever. It's relevant to some degree, but I promise you I'm not going to be seeking him out to go find out where he is and where he's living and who he's married to and how his relationship with his brothers is going. So I will return his challenge with a challenge. Only come out publicly as much as you'd like to be talked about publicly. If you want the sports world to talk zero about you, then spend zero time in front of a camera talking about stuff. If you want us talking about you once a week, then go on Pat McAfee once a week. That would be my return challenge to Mr. Rodgers.
My professional life. Try not to talk about me. Try not to still be relevant.
See, why say... First, you didn't retire. Now, why are you saying... He spent this whole time talking about how terrible it is that people are digging into his private life, and I agree with that. Now he's saying, hey, sports world, stay out of my professional life. What? Stay out of my football life as an active NFL quarterback for one of 32 teams? What are you talking about? Why would we do that? Nobody should do that. That's silly.
For the next 6 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever it is, just see if you can do that.
Private, sure. I mean, as long as it, if you bring it up, I'm going to bring it up. But private life, sure. Public, no. I'm interested in the fact that you are going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. Very interested as a former Green Bay Packer. Which, by the way, I was thinking about this. Another thing that, well, let me finish. There's like 20 seconds left. I didn't even listen to the rest of this, so I don't even know what this is.
How'd that feel? That felt pretty good.
Yeah.
That's my quarterback.
I mean, it's comedy. Yeah. The best part is
we're a part of the problem, though. We are a part of the problem. We want to let you know. We are a part of the problem.
On the beach. The problem is, I was walking on the beach with Mike the other day and Apollo, of course. And I was like, yo, bro, fucking paparazzi's probably up there. He's like, oh, yeah? I said, yo, yeah, look, there's a guy right there. We flipped him off. That'd be.
So, yeah, he's heated because he was out on the beach with a buddy and paparazzi's following him around. So, it's I get it, but don't say you're not upset. And don't. Again, it was a weird little switch at the end where it's like, there's certain people that are digging into my private life, and I want to keep my private life private. And then at the end, he's like, by the way, sports people, stop talking about my sports career. What? Wait a minute. You can't just switch it like that. That's not how that works. Stop talking about my professional career. No, we're not going to do that. The other thing that occurred to me, as far as like why I don't want Rodgers to have like a decent year, fine. Go have a decent year. Again, as long as you don't beat the Packers and win the Super Bowl, go have a decent year. You know what really bothers me about the Brett Favre years? There is an argument to be made as one of the greatest Green Bay Packers of all time, a guy that I idolized as a child, that he is my childhood. I lived and breathed. Every Sunday you watch is Brett Favre. It was just greatest thing ever. There is an argument to be made that his best year ever as an NFL quarterback was with the Vikings. Do you understand how much that sucks? Do you know how horrible that is? For all the Aaron Rodgers, I call them Aaron Rodgers fans. I don't mean to say that nobody else is, but the people that are just constantly living and breathing obsessed with Aaron Rodgers. Do you hate the Packers so much that you want him to have his best year ever as a Pittsburgh Steeler? Do you want that to be a part of his legacy? Do you know how horrible... It's going to be real tough for Aaron Rodgers to have his best year with the Steelers. He's had some shockingly good seasons. Can you imagine, though, if after all those years his best year was actually as a Steeler, how much that would suck? Can't have it. Can't have it. Cannot have that. All right? Okay. Anyways, I got to go back and find those swears and bleep them out and whatnot, but why don't we take a break, and we'll take a look at the rest of our DBs. We'll be right back. Alrighty, folks, let's talk about Mr. Keyshawn Nixon. So, Mr. Keyshawn, let's look at 2024. This past year, why did that get changed? First of all, let's do an overview of what Keyshawn's career has looked like. So 3 years at Las Vegas. He had a 30 grade, a 44 grade, and a 77 grade. But remember, he was never a full-time starting defensive player. He was a special teamer. He came to Green Bay primarily to be a special teamer. In fact, he only played 290 snaps, and that was about 150 more snaps than he'd ever played in a single season on defense. So those 3 grades kind of mean nothing. 155 snaps in 2020 when he had a 44 grade was the closest he had come to being an actual starter. It wasn't until year 5 in the NFL, year 2 in Green Bay, that he took on a starting role. In 2023, and this is, remember, Joe Barry's last year, 60 grade, 55 run defense, 70, well, it doesn't matter, and a 60 coverage. 60 and 60. It doesn't really get more average than that. He gave up 74 receptions, 717 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 5 pass breakups, a 100.7 passer rating when targeted, 5 penalties. This past year in 2024, 64 grade, 61 coverage grade. Again, about as dead average as you can get. He gave up 57 receptions, which, to be clear, is like 20 less while playing almost 100 more snaps, 74 down to 57. 529 yards, which is almost down 200 from 2023. He did give up 5 touchdowns, though, which is 3 more than he gave up in 2023. Now, this isn't 100% definitive. The touchdown thing is tough because PFF has to make a judgment call on who's responsible. I know they've gotten this wrong. But all of these things are just kind of general. Again, none of us really know. They're doing their best to kind of figure it out for us so that we have some kind of frame of reference. But especially with smaller numbers, with bigger numbers, it all kind of gets absorbed, and he gave up roughly 529 yards. I don't know. But with smaller numbers, 1 or 2 getting that wrong can make a pretty big difference. But 5 touchdowns given up, just 1 interception, 6 pass breakups, 97.5 passer rating when targeted. Again, he's fine as sort of a number 2, number 3. If he's your number 3, you feel real good. I mean, and by number 3, I mean your third best corner, because he is. If your floor is average corner, that is awesome. But he is not a premier corner. He's not a good corner. He's not a liability, I guess you could say, as a corner. The only other slightly interesting tidbit is they gave him 13 pass rush opportunities, which is not a lot. It's less than 1 a week. But he had a 93 pass rush grade because he got home 9 out of those 13 times with 3 sacks, 3 hits, and 3 hurries. So pretty impressive stuff. On the season, though, I just want to run through his week-to-week grades just so you can get an idea. To be clear, he had 4 games the entire season of 70 or higher. I don't think he missed a single game. All right, so it was 70, and I'm rounding, so it's just to the tens place, and I'm not rounding up, I'm just rounding down. So a 58 would be a 50. You see what I'm saying? So it's like you're in the 50s, 70s, 60s, kind of whatever, right? 70, 50, 60, 50, 60, 60, 60, 40, 50, 40. So the first more than half of the season, he had 1 good game, and that was week 1 against Philly. By the way, he was a slot corner in that game primarily. Some of these other games, he ended up being more of a boundary corner, whatever. Then starting in week 12, it was 80, 70, 70, 50, 60, 50, 60, 50. So he had a 3-game stretch where things were going quite well. San Francisco, Miami, Detroit. You can say in general, from week 12 on, he was better. There were only 3 games below a 60. But really, he had 1 good game week 1. He had a 3-game stretch of good games. Everything else is 40s, 50s, and 60s. In total, there was 1 game in the 80s, 3 in the 70s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the 60s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the 50s, and 2 in the 40s. If we look at his PFF grade, where he ranked among corners, he ranked 63rd. So he is like the highest graded number 2 corner in football would be one way to look at it, right? Or number 3, excuse me. If there's 32 teams, you got a number 1 inside the You got the top 32, the top 64. I lied. He's at the bottom of the whatever. Bottom of the number 2s, top of the number 3s. If we look at his coverage ability, he's at 77th. And again, you can change the year if you want. He's only really been a starter for 2 years, and his grades last year were slightly worse. So there's no way to approach this to say he is a top-tier corner. He's kind of a, again, low-end number 2, high-end number 3 corner. I don't mind having Keyshawn as a corner. Having him as a number 1 is a situation where we need to improve the cornerback room. And I know this is what has everybody up. So, well, then why didn't you do it? What are you going to do, bro? All right, yeah, I mean, if Trey Amos is the next great corner, then yeah, I guess that could have been the better option. They didn't seem to think so at the time when they were making their selection. I'm very sorry. If it was a better corner class, they would have done it. If there were better corners in free agency, there probably would have been some different things that happened. Like I said, there was probably one good corner in the group. Or at least there was one guy that I wanted, almost one guy in the entire free agent class that I wanted. And even he is probably more of a top-end number 2, not a premier guy, maybe a low-end number 1 kind of range. But that's kind of where I sit with Keyshawn. If you tell me we have a cornerback 1 and he's your CB2, I'm okay with it. It's not great, but I can deal with that, especially if you have another guy that's about the same, like with Nate Hobbs, who honestly, again, I think his ceiling is a little bit higher. I think his floor when he's injured or whatnot is Keyshawn, and then when he's healthy and playing really well, he's just better than Keyshawn. Again, for whatever that's worth, because I know, the injury issues are an issue in and of themselves. And I know listen, there are other metrics out there. There are other websites that track these things. There's other ways to do things. Obviously, the tape is another way to go about it. I'm trying to get us a little bit of a snapshot. I'm trying to use the stats as well as the grades here just to give us a little bit of a piece of kind of where I sit with this and why. If you have a different metric that you're looking at, feel free to call in. And if you want to look at it or if you want to ask me to look into it, 608-501-0718, you can call in and we'll take a little peek. But again, PFF gives a really nice snapshot with a lot of different stats and grades and whatnot to kind of compare, especially across the NFL, which I like. I saw somebody who was upset where it's like, if you're a content creator and you're using PFF, like what's wrong with you? There's only so many games. Why don't you just watch the tape? And that's fair for like each week. You should go back and watch the game again and do all that stuff. I think that's fair. But that doesn't help me in terms of understanding contextually what that means. Again, first of all, I can't 100% trust myself. I think it's important to go back and watch it so that you can see for yourself and generate your own opinions and all that. I think that's correct. But I can't tell you where Keyshawn is compared to, Darius Slay, Sauce Gardner, Carlton Davis, Patrick Surtain. In what ways are they better? For the season, how many picks did he get? I don't know. I just watched his one game. Well, how does that help you? I don't know. It's a different thing. It does help kind of give you a feel for certain things when you go and watch and give you more of a nuanced opinion of people and whatnot. And I'm fine with that. But there needs to be a big picture way of viewing things. And if all I did was go back and watch Keyshawn in a game or two, I would have almost nothing to provide you. Nothing. Like, okay, were those games some of his better games or worse games? I don't know. Even if I went back and watched every game, unless I was charting, I wouldn't have very much to provide to you other than just kind of the feeling that I got. And it's like, well, okay, so you thought he did a pretty good job. Like, how good? Like, what do you mean? Well, like, how good? Like, is he like a number 1? Like, I don't, how would I contextualize that? I don't know if he's a top 32 corner. I'd have to know what all the other corners in the NFL are doing. I don't have time to do that, to judge and figure out how to even grade and compare. I wouldn't even want to do that for just our corners, going back and watch every single snap of every single one of our corners in every single game. Like, come on, man. The extra little bit that I would get from that compared to the time that it would take, I mean, the cost benefit is wild. Again, during the season, yes, go back and watch the game if you have that opportunity, especially if you're either, just wanting to have a very good informed opinion, or especially if you are like me, a content creator, yes, you should do that. But, I mean, you got to have stuff like this to have a broader opinion on things. All right, let's just take a break here. I want to do Valentine and I want to do Bullard, and then we'll call it for today. Take a break. We'll be right back. Since I'm on this page already, why don't we pull up where Valentine and Bullard are on this list? The issue with Bullard is that I believe he's listed as a safety, so I'll have to look at his grades and whatnot and then come back here and see where he would rank among corners, which is totally fine. Actually, you know what? We should probably do Bullard first, because Valentine is a really positive thing that we should probably end on. Jair ranked 10th, by the way, just throwing that out there. Okay, so first of all, as you know, I wasn't a huge fan of Bullard. Yes, a lot of that is informed by PFF, and you can just disregard that if you want to, but let me just be very clear on kind of where I'm coming from. So among safeties, first of all, just from where we're at, if you look at coverage grades, there are 103 safeties. Javon Bullard ranked 88th out of with a 49 grade, meaning there were only 15 safeties that were graded worse. Hilariously, Darnell Savage was one of them, obviously. By the way, what is it with the Packers and their inability to get safeties? I mean, kudos to Gutekunst for going out and getting Xavier McKinney, and hopefully we have somebody in Williams and all that. But why every year do I have to tell you that we have safeties at the bottom of this freaking list? For years, we had like 2 safeties at the very bottom. I think even Amos was phenomenal when he was here, but it was like Amos and Savage were like in the bottom 5 or something ridiculous. And then we go out and get Javon Bullard, and where is he? He's in the bottom 15 among all safeties. Just the worst. Now, if we go back, if we look at his 49 coverage grade here and apply that to the corners to see where he would rank, 49.0 would put him at 117th out of 128 corners. Really, really, really not good. Again, I am very hopeful that Javon Bullard takes a big step. Again, he had to kind of transition to being sort of a full-time slot, and it was a lot of in and out, and will he, won't he, and learning this new defense and everything else that you have to do, getting into the NFL. Some people take some more time. Some people are just bad at football, like Darnell Savage was. Although I had hopes for him as well, ill-fated hopes that never came to fruition. But definitely, hopefully takes a step, but he needs to, because if he doesn't, this is awful. Also, again, to be clear, we haven't gotten to Valentine yet, but if Bullard is going to be starting for the Green Bay Packers, there's almost no chance, pending some kind of an injury, that we're going to see Valentine. It's just not, unless we have 4 corners out there or we put him in situationally or whatever. Certain packages. I mean, dude's got to take a big step. If you look at his overall grade, Javon Bullard was 87th out of 106 with a 54.2 grade. Among corners, that would put him at 103rd out of 128. If we look at Javon Bullard, Packers' second-round pick, I would say the one positive is that he's, unlike Keyshawn, who's always just kind of floating in the middle, he doesn't have terrible games. He doesn't really have a lot of great games. He had the 180. Bullard is very up and down, kind of reminiscent of Sean Ryan, who has improved over his time here. He had only 2 games in the 60s. Only sort of like 2 at around 60. So he had a 66 and a 62, 66 being kind of closer to 70, obviously. As far as being actually close to 60, he had a 59 and then the 62. Everything else was pretty far from that. 71 against Detroit as a primarily strong safety. That was week 9. He had a 73 grade as a slot, week 18 against Chicago. He had a 76 grade against Philly as a slot in the wild card game. He had a 78 grade as a free safety against the Indianapolis Colts in week 2. And they had an 85 grade as a slot against San Francisco week 12. I will say, every single game that he showed up in were big games that I need guys to show up in against teams that I freaking hate. I mean, Detroit, Chicago, Philly, not Indy, I guess, and San Francisco. Heck yes, brother. On the negative side, though, and this is where his grade ends up getting terrible because he had some terrible games. But again, this is where the hope comes in because you look at it and go, he had some really good games. We have to stop the bleeding. It wasn't a situation where he never really played well and he had bad games. No, he had really good games and really terrible games, and we need the terrible to stop. So he had some 50s. He had a 59 against Minnesota, 55 against Chicago, 53 against Miami, 52 against Tennessee. That's not great. It's not the worst. It's whatever. The really bad comes in with the other games. Week 1 against Philly. It's his first game as a rookie, whatever. But as a free safety, 46 grade, 39.8 coverage grade. 3 targets, 3 receptions, 44 yards, 118.8 coverage grade when targeted. Week 5 against LA as a slot corner. By the way, most of these are actually safety. Only 2 of them were slot. Maybe there's something to that. I don't know. Week 5 against LA as a slot, 45 grade, 38.9 coverage grade. 8 targets, which is the most in the season. 5 receptions, 56 yards, 83.3 coverage grade. Against Jacksonville as a strong safety. Again, he's playing all these different positions, but PFF is going to list him at what he did, presumably the most, and we can look at his snap counts in a little bit just to try to get an idea of what they had him doing. But I do think this is maybe a contributing factor to some of the problems. Free safety, strong safety, slot, moving them all over the place. 44 grade, 48.9 coverage grade. That's week 8 against Jacksonville as a strong safety. 5 targets, 4 receptions, 63 yards, and a touchdown, 158.3 passer rating when targeted. Week 17 against Minnesota as a strong safety. 37.7 grade, 41 coverage grade, 6 targets, 6 receptions, 72 yards, 2 touchdowns, 156.3 passer rating when targeted. And then his worst game as a slot, Week 14 against Detroit. 30 grade, 30 run defense grade, 37.5 coverage, 3 targets, 3 receptions, 118.8 coverage when targeted. He ended the season 54 grade, 49 coverage. He gave up 48 receptions, 487 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 1 pass breakup, 120 passer rating when targeted. So we have to stop the super negative, right? I mean, even if you bring the 30s and 40s up to 50s and 60s and then keep roughly the same amount of good games, I mean, this grade's going to skyrocket up to the 70s. We have to stop these really, really bad games. If we look at his snap counts here, he played 21 snaps on the line, 169 in the box, 361 as a slot, 6 snaps as a wide corner, 259 as a free safety, and then there's special teams. We'll just get that out of here. So, in order, he was a slot corner 361 times. That's what he did the most of any one single position. But he was free safety 259 times, 169 in the box, which part of that can be considered a safety. Depending on how that all goes, they would probably designate him as a box safety or whatever. So they probably combined that and said he was more of a safety than a corner, even though he more often was a corner than any other single position. But, I mean, just from a week to week, I mean, he never really was given an opportunity to just do a single thing. He was moved around a ton. Week 13, 40 snaps in the slot, and then 11 and 11 from safety and box. That was one of the most where it's like, okay, you just stay there. Week 5, 42 snaps in the slot, 14 in the box. That was another one where he's primarily just stay in the slot. So many of these other games, though, it's 15 slot, 19 safety, 21 box, 12 slot, 33 safety, 22 box. It's going to be tough, and I'm not, if you want to move him around as a chess piece, cool, I guess. I mean, that's going to make him more versatile and whatnot, but I understand how that would also make it a lot more difficult. because he has to learn a lot of stuff. He's not just a slot corner, learning how to be a slot corner as a rookie in Jeff Hafley's system. He also has to learn how to be a boundary corner and a safety and play in the box and blitz off the edge. And again, we did see quite a bit of positive. The negative wasn't the entire season. It was just that the bad was really, really bad. So we'll see. I'm hoping for a really big step here. I'm hoping he spending the offseason really delving into a lot of this stuff, getting it to the point where you just kind of know what to do. I understand that mentally it's very hard to adapt to all this stuff, but again, we have a really good coaching staff, really good teaching coaching staff, and I think if Bullard can commit himself to that, he played at a big program. He obviously had to do a lot of stuff there as well. Hopefully he can pick this stuff up and be that dude. But until that happens, again, I'm Team Valentine and then Keyshawn and Hobbs. But let's talk a little Carrington Valentine here, shall we? Because I think this is maybe the biggest reason to even have this conversation. It's good to go over it in general, but I think we're all kind of in agreement on Hobbs. Some range, but we're all kind of in the same boat. With Keyshawn, we all kind of know. Bullard, I think most of us know it was not a great year. There's probably some people that disagree, whatever. I'm just saying, we're all kind of on the same page. The one I would say there's maybe the biggest gap between what he showed everybody and our perception, mine included, is probably Valentine. Because again, I kind of put them all just in the same boat. Everybody was okay or whatever. Good, not great, I guess. I don't know. And there's definitely reason for concern. He's actually, in a way, very similar to Valentine or to Bullard in that, you got a lot of real good and real bad, with the difference being the real good is better and the bad is not as bad, especially in the coverage realm. But just so we're on the same page here, Carrington Valentine, not yet 24 years old. He was a 7th-round pick. In his rookie season, he played basically a full season, which is impressive for a 7th-round pick to be thrust into that, partly out of necessity, but I mean, there are other options. There's some level of, okay, this guy's ready. As a rookie, 58 overall defensive grade, 59 coverage grade. So that's pretty much right where Carrington is and Hobbs in that range, right in the 60 range for both. In year 2, his 57 overall grade went up to a 65. His 59 coverage grade went up to a 71.4. To be clear, now, the overall grade is lower because the tackling and run defense and whatnot is really not great. But as far as coverage goes, 71.4 is tied with Deron Bland of Dallas for the 27th highest coverage grade, which would make him a low-end number 1 corner in the NFL. DJ Reed, the guy that I said is a solid corner, kind of a low-end number 1, high-end number 2 type of guy, whatever, the guy that I wanted the Packers to pick up, he ranked 32nd behind Carrington Valentine in coverage. Mike Hughes of Atlanta tied with Carrington Valentine as far as his coverage grade. Some other guys that were lower, Nate Wiggins, Denzel Ward, A.J. Terrell, Devin Witherspoon of Seattle, who had a really good rookie year, was kind of a superstar, still had a solid enough year, but not quite Carrington Valentine good, you know what I'm saying? So if we kind of zoom in on his season, 2024, and he didn't play quite as much. He did miss some time. He didn't play weeks 3, 4, 6, 7, 10. One of those is a bye week, but I don't remember which one, so there you go. About 250 less snaps, but comparing 2023 to 2024, he went from 72 targets down to 33, less than half the amount of times he was targeted. 40 receptions down to 27, 470 yards given up down to 328. He gave up 0 touchdowns compared to 1 in 2023. He had 2 picks compared to 0, 3 pass breakups compared to 5. 82.8 passer rating when targeted. His rookie year was 80.2. For his career, it's an 82.2, which is really not terrible. He's given up, in those 2 years, less than 800 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, 8 pass breakups. Potentially even the better news is that Carrington Valentine, and we can go through, again, he had X amount of great games, good games, mediocre games, whatever. The real good news here is that almost all of the good from Carrington came at the end of the season. Remember when we were talking about at the end of the year, the corners really got better? It's kind of Carrington, right? I mean, the corners in general weren't targeted as much and all that stuff, but Carrington, in terms of like the grades and everything, that he really took off. And I think that was true with Keyshawn as well. I don't remember the exact details on his situation. A little bit better, I think, in the second half, around week 12 or so. But if we look at through week 14, remember he missed several games in there, so it wasn't actually 14 games, but 60-60-50, 60-60-50, 20-60-60. So one really bad game against San Francisco. The stats weren't the worst, but he must have just been not great in coverage in that game, I guess. But a ton of 60s, and then 2 games that were slightly below and 1 bad game. No good games in that stretch. Then, starting week 15 against Seattle, he had a 90.2 grade with a 90.4 coverage grade. Against New Orleans, it was a 77.5 with a 78 coverage grade. Against Minnesota, it was 62, but a 71 coverage grade. And then against Chicago, 75 with a 73 coverage grade. So his coverage grade in that span, the final 4 weeks of the regular season, was 90, 78, 71, 73. Now, the Philly game sucked. 38, 28 run defense, 28 tackling, 47 coverage. It was his second worst game, his only other really bad game outside of San Francisco against Philly, which sucks. But look, Carrington improved from year 1 to year 2. He got something clicked in the second half of the season. Maybe it's a fluke, I don't know. But this was a really good stretch down the final stretch for Carrington. So we'll see. Again, as of right now, I don't know exactly how the Packers have this as far as how they want this to look, the defense, the secondary, whatever. In the little bit of time we saw, again, it was Keyshawn, Hobbs, Bullard appeared to be the group, which would mean Carrington being the backup. I don't think that's really definitive. I think Carrington has earned the right to at least battle for that outside spot, putting either Hobbs or Keyshawn in the slot. Packers probably don't want to do that because, again, they brought in Hobbs probably with certain expectations. Keyshawn, they seem to really want to push him out to the boundary, really like him out there. So it's kind of a process of elimination thing from that point. But I think it would be foolish to not consider the prospect, considering Hobbs and Keyshawn, as far as I know, are not at least not worse in the slot. Maybe I'm wrong, but I haven't noticed any kind of pattern that would show that they're worse in the slot. I haven't done a massive amount of digging, I'm just saying. But this is kind of the baseline right now. Carrington was our best corner last year based on this. He wasn't our most consistent. I would say, there's everybody's kind of got their own thing. Keyshawn is a little bit more consistent, but just not quite as like real good. Carrington and Bullard are actually really similar, which is weird because you got technically your worst and your best. But again, like I said with Bullard, if you just take some of those bad games and move them up a little bit, right? Take away like 1 or 2 of the bad games and make them mediocre games, and then make one of his good games a great game. He's Carrington Valentine. So the gap is not that huge. But this is just sort of the baseline here. Keyshawn is kind of your steady guy. Carrington and Bullard are still kind of young. They've shown a lot of upside, but we need more consistency. We need more upside. We need less downside, right? It's just kind of, let's just calm down the ups and downs a little bit, and let's trend more toward the up than the down. And then with Hobbs, again, I think he is a good football player, but we haven't seen it as consistently, largely because of, the injury stuff that has set him back. And that's just going to kind of be a wait and see. Obviously, we got to mix him in with a new team. He might get an immediate boost. With Hafley, we have to hope that they brought him in because they thought he'd be a great fit for what, Hafley and Matt LaFleur are looking to do with the defense. But, we don't... The other thing is we talk about the secondary as, especially the more negative fans, knowing what we have. We don't know what we have. We don't know what year 2 is going to look like for anybody in this defense for as far as the secondary. So that includes Keyshawn. We have no idea what Hobbs is going to look like in this defense. We're not sure if Carrington Valentine is going to take a third leap, or I should say a second leap in his third year. We don't know if Bullard is going to take a step from year 1 to year 2. We know that we didn't go out and get some 29-year-old veteran that used to be good in the past and pay a ton of money for him. We do know that. But we don't exactly know what we have, and we're just going to have to wait and see. Now, we can be pessimistic about it, and that's fine, because there isn't a ton here right now. But it's also not terrible. This is not a bad group. We've had bad groups before. We've had a lot of bad cornerback groups. This isn't a bad cornerback group. If it's, Carrington, Hobbs, and Keyshawn, there's no blue chippers, but there's no terrible players here. Bullard is the only guy that might end up being a bit of a liability. But again, just because his final grade was, X, doesn't mean that's what he was in every single game. Again, he was mostly average in every game. So, all right, I'm going to leave it at that. You guys have a good rest of your day. I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.